Welcome, everyone. You're at State of Play with Indivisible Marin out in the San Francisco Bay Area. This is our July meeting. It's a repeating call, so this is our second one for the 2026 midterms. So glad to see you all here, giving up an hour of your Sunday afternoon to get updated on the election. Lots of familiar faces out there, but also some new ones. A lot of you know us very well. You've been coming to these meetings for a long time. We've been having them since 2022 in the lead up to big elections. But I know some of you are new. So I'm going to just run through our organization quickly to give you an idea. We are a bit of a unique chapter of the national group Indivisible, which was started right after Trump was elected in 2016. We're a legacy original chapter, but now we've grown over 9 years to about 12,000 members. 40% here live in Marin County, which is just north of San Francisco, 30% outside of Marin in California, and another 30% out of state. Our county is very blue, so we don't need to work locally. We can work pretty much anywhere we want across the country. And we have 4 lanes that we work in. We do voter outreach to elect Democrats at all levels of the federal ballot, the House, the Senate, and the White House. We also do outreach to our elected officials, both here in Marin County and in California, to advance the policies that we want to see advanced. We also help people in other states work with their elected officials. It's such an important part of a democracy, and we love to empower people that way. We also do local outreach, and that's around resistance and protest work, as well as helping and supporting our vulnerable communities here in our own county. And then lastly, we do volunteer outreach. And that's what we're here tonight to do, to train and empower our members to make them more effective and comfortable volunteers. We really believe that an informed volunteer is a much better volunteer. To do that, we have a leadership group of about 20 people. Many of them are here tonight. And we have a steering committee of 7. Besides myself on that committee, Joy Martin is here. She's working in the weight room, helping with security issues, and Andy Triolo and Matt Schmidt are here, and they'll be answering your questions in the chat. On top of that, we have other leaders and former leaders here tonight watching and listening to the calls, and they will also be reaching out to you in the chat. Susan Morgan, our director and founder, is still with us. She's one of the few founding members of an original Indivisible chapter that is still a director almost 10 years later. She couldn't be with us here tonight, but she sends her best to everyone, and she'll see you next month. My role here, my name is Lori Friedman, and I am on the steering committee here. I've also worked in all of the election voter outreach programs, directing phone banking programs, texting, done some canvassing and a lot of postcarding over the years. But my special lane, what I love to do is talk about elections. So that's what we're going to do here tonight. Really excited to be here. Our agenda is the same every month. We cover the 5 things that go into building a successful election. We'll talk about the electorate, that's you and me, voters. We'll talk, cover some fundraising issues. We'll go in depth and spend most of our time about the candidates and the races. We will cover election security and also volunteer and the programs that we have going on this year. And then we'll have time for a Q&A. This call is recorded. We don't share the slides, but we will share the recording, and that will go to all of you in about a week. It will also be on our website and our YouTube channel. A bit about the midterms before we get started to make sure that everyone's on the same page. There are some generalities that everybody should be aware of. There's a lot of comparisons between 2018 and 2026 because of the blue wave nature of 2018 and the fact that we're going to have another blue wave this year. That's a very fair comparison, but there are some differences. The main one is that we don't have nearly as many races within our grasp this year as we did back then because of gerrymandering, because of the redistricting, and just the polarization of the country. We have a clear path to winning the House and a pretty good one for winning the Senate, but it's not nearly what we had in 2018. So just to be fair, we need to keep that in mind. There's some basic things about midterms. The minority party has a strong advantage. We're usually more motivated to get back power. And historically, minority parties do very well in midterms. They are lower turnout elections, which has some repercussions, especially this year, that I think will be an advantage for us, because when Trump is not on the ballot, his voters don't turn out as much for other candidates. So that will work to our advantage. So those are two things we can check off. The calendar itself is very different. And for those of you that have worked in elections, especially in 2024, there's some big differences because we don't have nominating conventions. So that gives a long primary period. We can work with our parties to move them younger and to the left, which is what a lot of people want to see in the Democratic Party. They could move more MAGA. But with that long primary season, when you have multiple candidates and lots of time to debate and have conversations, you'll see this is a great time to move your party in one direction or another. It's a little harder to do when you have a short primary season. There are some implications for candidates as well as parties. And candidates, if you are running by yourself and you don't have a primary opponent, you're pretty much cleared that field and your party has cleared it for you, you can just sit back all these months, raise a boatload of money, and be ready to go at it when that general election starts. If you're in the middle of a big primary, you're going to spend a lot of your money. If you come out and you win, that's great, but you have a short period of time to bring together the different parts of your party. You've got to bring people that didn't vote for you to now vote for you in November. And that's where we come in handy. We can do a lot as volunteers, helping that single candidate bring together the different factions of their party. We're going to be talking about ratings a lot. I use the Cook report just to put all that information out for you. It is one of the many ratings groups out there that look and rate different races on how competitive they are. And I like the Cook. It's highly, highly predictive. It's very accurate, sort of the gold standard. So that's what we'll be referring to. But there are others out there. For polls, I use the New York Times list of preferred pollsters. There are very few good polls out there. We have thousands of polls, but the ones that I'll be talking about are the ones that are considered the gold standard, the highest rated. And one thing to note about polls now, they're going to switch a little bit in this month and leading into next because we've moved from polling all registered voters to only those voters that are likely to vote. And sometimes that does show a shift in candidate support, hopefully to our side, but we'll be talking about that too, those likely voters. So starting off talking about voters, the electorate, that's you and me. How are we feeling? What are we thinking? What's going on out there? One of the best ways to look at that is the generic poll that asks people which side you want to see in power, Democrats or Republicans. It correlates with the presidential popular turnout or popular vote and the congressional or House vote. And you can see, I was really hoping they would have a July number by today, but they haven't released it yet. You can see we've sort of plateaued out over the last 3 months. We haven't really gained much. There's still 10% of the population out there that hasn't decided even what party they want to vote for. It's sort of hard to believe, but that does give us a lot of room to work and a lot of room to still move this electorate. It may stay this way. It may never change. This could be the ceiling, but hopefully next month we'll see maybe 12-point difference there that we've moved a little bit and convinced a few more people to vote for us. But regardless, this is higher than it was in 2018. So that really does point to a blue wave. So where are we getting these extra voters? Why are we so much higher than we were in 24? Where are they coming from? Who are they? Who are these people that have changed their minds? What groups have we impacted? It's pretty much everyone. The youth has now turned towards the Democratic Party. The Hispanic population has turned towards us. The independent vote has strongly turned towards us. It's one of the most powerful switches. And then there's a group called double haters. And these are people that, I mean, hate's a strong word, but don't like either party. They truly are voting for Obama in one election and Trump in the next, and then Biden, and then Trump again. These are the people that switch their votes, and they vote primarily on their own lived experience, their own personal life. And we have regained those. We lost them in 2024. They voted strongly for Trump, but they are now voting for us. So we've covered the possibilities, the potential people out there that are voting for us. At least in a poll, they're telling us that they're going to vote Democrat this year. So all reasons to be encouraged. Enthusiasm polls are a little tricky because unfortunately they don't correlate with actual turnout. You can be a very enthusiastic voter in July, but actually not turn out in November. But regardless, we are way higher than we were in 2024. We were the most enthusiastic party in 2024, but we didn't actually show up on election day. But in these polls now, we are about twice as enthusiastic as we were back in 2024. The big question for us is, are these people actually going to vote in November, or are they going to stay home? And there's a lot of reasons why they could do either one, but this really falls on us at this point. The party and the candidates have done a great job driving these voters to us, but we are the ones that are responsible for bringing them to the polls, because people decide early. They usually decide in the summertime, around the time of their primary, which party they're going to support, what they want, but that doesn't mean they're going to actually vote. So we have two jobs as we move forward to November as volunteers. One of them is the persuasion group, and it's not persuading Republicans to vote for us, because we clearly have the votes across the country to win this election. It's making sure that they understand they need to vote, and that's a different conversation. And then for the people that have actually decided and committed to vote for our candidate, we need to make sure they do that, and that is through a Get Out the Vote campaign that will start during early voting. So two different things going on, but we have the voters we need to win this election. We just need to make sure they get to the polls. There are a small group of people that are hesitant to vote for a Democrat because they don't really want to see a Democratic government. They just don't like their Republican. And it's one thing to vote for your Republican, and it's another to know that because of the small margins, your vote might be actually switching the balance of power. So that's another thing that weighs on more conservatively leaning voters this year. And that's something that we need to work with. What's the best thing for the country? A Republican government or a Democratic government? And that's a separate conversation. Moving on to fundraising, it's pretty much the same as last month, no real changes. Our candidates are doing fantastic. We've never seen such high candidate fundraising. So that's individual people like you and me contributing to a candidate. We are far outraised Republicans in the tens of millions of dollars. We have House candidates that are outraising Senate candidates. It's really remarkable. Where we're falling behind is the party committee. People are not supporting the party as much as they have. It's not a terrible deficit, but it is there. We have prioritized our spending, though, what we have in digital and Spanish language, which is what we weren't doing in 2024. So our priorities are right. We don't have as much cash as we thought we would have, but it's not disastrous. We are still far behind in the PAC and the super PAC. That's the dark money. We'll never catch up there. We simply don't have those types of groups on our side. But overall, if you add it all up, we are very, very competitive this year financially. The new thing to talk about from last time is this Supreme Court ruling that basically allows those political committees, the DNC, the RNC, the DCCC that works in the House, to spend directly into candidates' campaigns. They could always do things separately, raise their own money, hold their own ads, but now they can actually throw their money right into a candidate's campaign fund. And that sort of negates our big advantage that we had there. And candidates get better rates on advertising. They can reserve more time. So that advantage is going to disappear for us. We can do the same. We can take our committee money and throw it to candidates. But totally that's going to probably negate that big advantage. However, it's probably too late for this year for that to equalize. This is going to be more of a problem in future elections, and we can deal with that then. But right now, from a fundraising point of view, most people feel we've done as best as we can at this point. And that candidate money is what builds field operations early on. That's what's given us an ad advantage. And then, of course, there's the flip side, is how important are TV ads? Do they really make a difference? I think there's a lot of debate around that. So overall, I would say we're doing pretty well. For those of you in California, just as a little highlight, we have a Proposition 4 on our ballot this year that is going to allow any jurisdiction within the state of California to pass public financing of campaigns that will help level out the playing field against that big money, that super PAC money. So good news coming here for California, but most of this, I think, will kick in 2028. All right, let's get to the candidates where we where everybody really wants to hear the latest. Before I go into that, I wanted to just differentiate between the races because I'm going to throw out a lot of terms like solid, likely, lean, toss-up. Wanted you guys to know exactly what that means. And again, this is per the Cook report. If you're a candidate and your race is solid, that means you are completely safe. It doesn't matter if you're Republican or a Democrat. It doesn't matter what's happening in the world. You're going to win by 20 plus points, probably more. You don't have to campaign. You don't have to raise money. You don't have to do anything. Think somebody like Nancy Pelosi just doesn't need to work to win. It's not a good thing in the big picture. And most races in the country, both congressional and Senate, are in this category. We've really lost the ability to make big moves in Congress because everybody is so safe. Likely races are similar. They're more in the 8 to 20 point range. They don't need to campaign. They don't usually raise a lot of money, but they want to stay there. So you will see some campaign going on, but on election day, they're very safe also. And then the lean races are where sort of all the action is. These are races that are predicted to be sort of in that 4 to 8 point range. When you have the headwinds, when you have the political headwinds with you, when you have a turnout advantage, when you have good local and state campaign working and a lot of grassroots in your area working for you, you are safe. So the Democrats that are listed in this column this year are safe. However, Republicans do not have the headwinds. They are going against the headwinds. And so they are vulnerable on election day. And this is going to open up a lot of new races for us, especially in the House. But most of the time, it's the toss-up races that we talk about. And these are races that are essentially tied. 0 to 3 points, that's within the margin of error of any poll. This is where all the action is. And about 95% of the races that flip on election day are going to come from this column, no matter what our politics. They are entirely dependent on turnout. And that's why we focus on them. To win a race, if you are a candidate and you're in a toss-up race, you need turnout. You need to have the political headwinds with you. Your party needs to be popular, but you need national attention. It's not enough just to go to your locality or your state. You need people coming in from out of state to make calls for you. You need a lot more money. You need people writing postcards for you. You need the national world coming in. And this is why we talk about toss-up races as being so important to the eventual winner, but also for us as volunteers. This is where we focus our time and energy. I'm going to go more into detail on the Senate today because there's so much going on in the Senate. I thought it would be a good time to kind of go deep into that. This is the Cook report, and you can see if you take away all these blue arrows, you can see that back in December when this was first released, we didn't even have any races to flip. There weren't any that were seen as even possible, and that's why the Senate seemed so far out of reach. Right now, we have 47 Democratic senators. We would have to get to 51. That means we would have to flip 4 of these districts. There weren't even 4 available back then. So it looked a little bit grim, but now 8 months later, 7 months later, look at all of the races that have been moved to our favor. That is purely because of politics. That is purely because of the Trump administration and how they're driving people to the other side. This is a blue wave. It's exactly what it looks like. And someplace like Alaska has moved 3 times in 6 months because of politics, because of the political energy in the country. So clearly a blue wave there. This is what it looks like today. Now we suddenly have 3 races that we could flip here, 2 more that for Republicans are very vulnerable. And we only have 1 now to worry about on our side. The rest are looking more and more secure. And we could still see further movement in the next few months. But right now, the Senate, although it's very tight, we don't have a lot of opportunity. In the House, we have many more opportunities than we need. The Senate, we're sort of right there, but it is mathematically possible there is a road to do that. So how does that look? The first thing you have to do before you even think about flipping all these seats is you have to hold the ones that you have that are considered vulnerable. And Georgia was one that I think a year ago we would have said is very vulnerable. Well, a year makes a big difference. Jon Ossoff is a tremendous candidate. I've all heard rumors that he's thinking about running for president at some point in his life. And I told a friend, I said, if you're feeling badly about the Democratic Party right now, listen to him for 15 minutes. I think you'll feel a lot better. He is truly a transformational candidate. He's done a great job in Georgia. helped by the fact that Georgia's demographics are getting younger and bluer. That helps too. But even our governor candidate in Georgia is leading. So big news out of Georgia. Fairly weak opponent he has, kind of a MAGA. Mike Collins is his name. The last poll had him up 13 points, which is, you have to do a double take when you look at that. He's not going to win by 13 points, but that certainly puts him fairly secure. They're working hard in Georgia every day. They have a tremendous voter outreach team down there, but I think we will likely be able to keep this seat. The other two are very different. New Hampshire is also considered vulnerable. New Hampshire is a red state from a statewide point of view. They have a red executive branch and a red legislature. But interestingly enough, they elect their federal officers consistently as Democrats, both from the presidency to their Senate seats to their two or three congressional districts are all Democrats. It's very unusual. So for that reason, this is a federal office. This is considered a lean Democrat. However, the other unusual thing about New Hampshire is that their primary is in September and they do not allow early voting. So their whole election season is happening when everybody else has already started voting pretty much. And that is a different situation for sure. And they can't really start campaigning before then, even though we have two candidates that have cleared the field and are clearly going to be the candidates. Our candidate is Chris Pappas. And he is the first openly gay member of Congress. He's been there for a long time. He's very popular. Normally, he'd be sort of a shoo-in, except that he's running against a Sununu. And the Sununus are royal politicians in New Hampshire. John's father and his brother have both been governors. John himself is a former senator. So because Pappas is running against this political powerhouse of a family, that's an additional challenge. This is a very popular family. So this is going to be a tight race. It's going to be very close. The hypothetical polls have Pappas up a little bit, but he's going to have a lot of work to do very, very late in the year. Michigan is the tough one. I think everybody's probably pretty well aware of what's happening back there. We've slipped in our popularity. Democrats have over the last 4 years. We did not have a good year at all there in 2024. This is a toss-up. Their primary is on August 4th. It's an open seat because our senator there, Gary Peters, is retiring. Our race is going to be Haley Stevens. She's a congressional representative. She is considered the moderate against Dr. Abdul El Sayed. He is the far left, more Bernie Sanders type candidate, running against Mike Rogers, who is a longtime political figure in Michigan. He lost in 2024, so he's trying again. But he did not have a primary. So he's been sitting back raising tens of millions of dollars and just waiting to see he's running against. This is a bitter primary. These are two candidates that have vastly different ideologies, and they are essentially tied in the polls. And a hypothetical poll of each one of them against Mike Rogers is also tied. So there's no closer race in the United States. We're just going to have to wait and see. But this is being seen as the referendum on whether or not a far left candidate can win if he wins, will he be able to win in basically a purple state like Michigan? So very interesting politically. We'll know more the next time we talk. Their primary again is in a couple of weeks. So assuming we win all three of these, and I think you can see they're all challenging, then where do we go to flip seats? Well, I think we've already flipped one in North Carolina. That's Roy Cooper. He's their former governor. He's a great candidate. He won his primary way back in March. So he's been running for a long time. The polls are very favorable. He's anywhere from 7 to 15 points up. So this is a check mark. This is likely going to be easier win for us than Michigan will be. And then there's two more possibilities. Toss-up seats in Ohio and Alaska. They're both very red, but Sherrod Brown we've got great candidates. Sherrod Brown is the former senator there that lost his seat a couple of years ago, but he's coming back again, probably more familiar to people than the current senator who was just appointed when Vance became vice president, John Husted. I think he's a little boring. He seems fairly flat to me. He's never run a campaign before. Brown is iconic there, and that's why normally we wouldn't be in this situation of thinking we could win Ohio, but Brown is nobody else can do it besides him. He's the original union man, working class, sort of economic populist. His message is very much resonating with residents there. He's been anywhere from down 3 to up 8 points in good polls. So I think people are hopeful that he'll be able to pull that one out. Alaska is a little bit tough to analyze because of the way they do their elections. They have a nonpartisan primary in about a month from now. The top 4 people will advance to the general for a ranked choice voting election in November. Very difficult to poll around these kinds of things. Our candidate will certainly be one of the 4, Mary Peltola. She's the only Democrat that's won recently a statewide election there. She was a member of Congress a few years ago. The incumbent is Dan Sullivan. He's been there for a long time. He's a very MAGA older man. And then there'll be 2 additional candidates. So it's really who works out to the end, as far as people ranking them from 1 to 4, who will end up with basically the most points. So challenging races. That still doesn't give us a 4th seat. This will get us to 50. 50 is actually interesting in the Senate this year because of the power sharing agreements that come out of a 50-50 Senate. We will have a lot of power at 50. So if we don't get to 51, I mean, I'm not going to be crushed. It will be very interesting, and it will also force Vance into the deciding vote. Should everybody vote along party lines? That is the last thing in the world he wants to do, is to be responsible for every Senate vote as he heads into his own presidential election. So 51 would be great. 50 would be good. We have a lot of good chances to pick up a few more seats in 2028. So everything that we can do to just cut into the Republican lead in the Senate will be very helpful come 2028. But I don't think we should be devastated if we don't take over the Senate. This is a tough map. I think you can see this is a tough map. We have a couple of other possibilities. Iowa is a red state, but the worst performing economic state in the country right now. They have the highest rate of inflation, unemployment. Their GDP is the lowest in the country. So these are people that are looking for a change. It's an open seat. Joni Ernst is retiring. Ashley Hinson is a very MAGA member of Congress that is running for the Republicans. And our candidate is Josh Turek. He's a state representative, very compelling man. He has a gold medal in the Olympics for the Paralympics. He is wheelchair bound. And very compelling candidate. Polls have had him up as high as 4 and down as low as 2, but that's essentially a tied race. So that will be close. But because the state is so red, it's still considered a lean Republican. Sort of the same thing in Texas. We got the matchup we wanted with James Tallarico, very, very dynamic young state representative there, against the MAGA Attorney General Ken Paxton, who's been impeached by his own party. These polls are even, and that looks a little disappointing. I think at first sight, why wouldn't Tallarico be at least a few points up? And I asked myself the same question, but just to give you some context, this is the highest a Democrat has polled in Texas in like 20 years. So he is doing well relatively, but this will be a very close election, tilting towards Republicans because it is a redder state, but certainly room for him to pull this out. Then there's Maine. And Maine doesn't have a ranking right now, a rating, because they don't have a candidate and everything that's happening there. So once they get a candidate next weekend, I think we'll start seeing this race firm up. We'll get some polling in, and we'll see if it is still the toss-up race that it was before Plattner dropped out a couple of weeks ago. So right now, as we speak, they're in the process of selecting delegates in 16 counties. They will send those delegates next Saturday to a nominating convention with 100 additional delegates from their state party. They will conduct multiple rounds of voting until they get a winner. There are about 12 candidates, I think 11 or 12 candidates that are running, but these are the 2 names that you'll see this week. They are both campaigning to these delegates all week long, making their pitch. Nirav Shah is a former Maine, basically the public health director, their CDC director there, very popular. He came in second, actually, in the governor race this year. Troy Jackson is the former state Senate president. He's got quite a lot of endorsements. He came in third in their governor primary this year. He's the one that's most closely attached to Plattner as far as ideology goes, and many of Plattner's supporters have moved to Jackson. But this will be decided by nomination, and we'll know a week from today who the candidate is And then we'll be able to tell with some early polling if we think this is still as competitive as it was with Plattner before his scandals developed. All right, moving on to the House. This is what the blue wave looks like in the House. These are the way the races were listed in January. The royal blue arrows are the first round that were moved back in the spring. And then we have these darker blue ones that were moved in June. And then surprisingly, they moved another 7 races to our favor just a week ago. This is pretty unusual to see races continue to be moved by Cook this late in the year. Now, this doesn't include all the races that moved to Republicans and to Democrats through redistricting. This is just the political energy of a blue wave. So the total picture doesn't look as great as this, but you can just see the tremendous amount of movement that has happened over the last year. This is pretty extraordinary. And what's happened in the last month since we talked is that our races that were likely Dem and lean Dem have become a lot more secure. And that means less for us to worry about. We can focus more on just these races right here. So all good news coming out of the House. Between that and the tremendous amount of fundraising that these candidates are doing, the House just looks better and better and better. The numbers, though, are still tight. 215 Democrats to 220 right now. That means we would have to flip 3 seats if the election were held today. But we're not in this map, we're in a different map. And now that number has gone to 209. The Republicans have picked up, netted 6 firm new seats. That means we need to flip 9 seats. That's still very doable. We just won't come out of this with this huge advantage that we thought we were going to have, this huge majority. It's going to be small. But in 2018, we flipped 75% of our House race toss-ups, and that would gain us 10 new seats. So even if we were just at the 218 level, we will still have the House. And just in summary, we would need to hold just 4 seats. That's actually not very much relatively in the House, and flip 9 of 14. So we're going to continue to watch that generic poll. We'll see if they move any more races to us. I think that they will. And for those of us here in California, we have a possible new problem on our hands. In California 6, we ended up running against an independent rather than a Republican. So that one might come into play. Haven't heard anything for sure, but we'll keep an eye on that. This is kind of a messy slide, but it basically just tells you where all these races are. These are the 14 toss-up races. You can see we just have to hold 4. These are the races that are also in play for us because of Republicans being in a vulnerable position this year. And these are the lean Democratic races. 2 of them just in the last week have been even moved off this list and just declared safe. So everything is shifting to the left. We have a lot of work to do. This is a lot of candidates, a lot of money. Again, we can only win these races if we do 100% of the work, but we certainly have the opportunity to do it. Before we leave, I wanted to cover the House just a bit in California because of Proposition 50. I get a lot of questions about this. Just to show you what Proposition 50 did. If you worked in that election, this was the result of your work. The number or the map to the left is the current map, 43 Democrats, 8 Republicans, and 1 independent. You can see there's a lot of red there, but there's 750,000 people in each of these districts, and most of them are too small to actually show up on a map like this, especially in the LA area and around the Bay Area. The map on the right is what it will look like if we win, and we'll get to 48 Democrats, just 4 Republicans. And you can see the 3 seats here that aren't quite dark blue. Those are the ones we'll be working in, 13, 22. And 48 down here. But this is gerrymandering. This is what happens when you redraw the districts to favor one party or the other. If we do win the House, it will be because of this map. It will be because we picked up 5 seats that would not have been ours without Proposition 50. All right, before we break for some questions, I want to cover the state races. We don't do a lot of that in this call because it's just too much information, but I wanted to just set the stage because this is really where 2028 is going to be won, is if we can get control back in some of these states, because states control redistricting and these states will control election security for 2028. All of the states that are up for grabs are presidential battleground states, as it turns out this year: Arizona, Nevada, Michigan, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Georgia. There's something major happening in every one of those states. And we need to be fighting there, just like we're fighting at the federal level. If you live in any of those states, you'll hear quite a bit about this if you haven't already. For a little context, this all started in 2010 when Republicans in their red wave election, after Obama was elected, picked up 700 seats across the country and flipped 27 state chambers. We've been trying to fight back against this ever since. We did a little bit of good in 2018. We gained 300 seats. We picked up 7 and we've chipped away, but we're still behind. This year, this has actually been Ken Martin and the DNC's major investment, is building up state party power, building up the infrastructure that we can win at state levels, because most of these states are at least 50% Democratic and have next to no state power. The way it's shaping up right now with the headwinds and the way we've been overperforming at the state level, we're looking at about 650 seats now are in play. We're competing in 41 chambers and 27 states to try to get back that state power. We probably won't talk a lot about this again until after the election, but just to know that while we're following the election returns, in California 22 and in Ohio and Texas that night, this is also happening and incredibly important. And it'll be the first thing that we'll be talking about, in January in 2027. On the state legislature side, big battles in Arizona, Nevada, Michigan, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, either breaking supermajorities there, which will help us secure a lot of good votes, or taking over chambers completely. Outside things to worry about in Vermont and Minnesota, all those are already blue states. We don't have to worry so much, but we would like to gain in legislature power there. Governor races just about everywhere in all of the familiar states. We need to flip the Nevada seat. There's no polling available yet, but we are up in the Georgia governor race. And then we have major governor races, Arizona, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. We are leading in all of those. Wisconsin, they don't have their primary until August. Kansas and Vermont are not presidential battleground states, but we do have governorships that we would like to retain. These are open seats for new people. All right. I wish I didn't have to cover election security before we break for questions, but every call that I'm on, this is the major question that people have. So I did want to address it today. I'm trying to spend a lot of my time attending calls for election security with different groups across the country. I have to say, I feel so much better after attending these calls. So I wanted to pass along that to you. In 2020, we were worried about foreign interference and the Trump administration challenging the results, which is exactly what happened. We were well prepared and we won those lawsuits, but we all remember what that was like and we don't want to live through that again. In 2026, though, it's coming from everywhere. It's coming from localities. It's coming from state governments, state legislatures, from governors. It's coming from the White House. It's coming from Department of Homeland Security that wants to be a part of every polling place. It's also coming from groups on the ground and individuals that are interfering and intimidation forces at poll sites. And then, of course, we're worrying about outright political violence and whether or not that's going to be tolerated in some areas. And then what are the courts going to do? Which side are they going to take? It's a lot. It's overwhelming. And the Brennan Center is what I refer people to who really are interested in this. It's a great group that basically just deals with election issues. They hold great calls. They have a great website. Highly recommend that for people that are interested. So what have I learned in the last month? The Trump administration is 0-11. We have a perfect record now protecting voter lists. What the Trump administration wanted to do is they wanted to go in and not just access them, because anybody can access a voting list. They're publicly available, but they wanted to control it. They wanted the states to turn over voter rolls to the federal government so they could purge voters and recreate a different electorate is basically what they wanted to do. It's been turned down at every single point in their plan. 11-0 we've won. Just for you in California, they have tried this in California and our courts will be ruling this week, and they will be ruling, of course, against the Trump administration. So our voting lists are protected. The Supreme Court did say that mail-in ballots can be mailed in, that they are legal depending on what every state already has in place. So they cannot throw out mail-in ballots, at least not this election. And then Mark Elias is the leading election security voting protection lawyer in the country. He and his group filed and won most of the cases in 2020 about election interference. I heard him speak actually several times, but what he has said consistently is that in his long career, and he is a registered Democrat, he has never seen the Democratic Party ready, more prepared for election interference than they are now. They started in 2024. They have an action prepared to drop on day one for any conceivable thing that the Trump administration will throw at this. So all we can do is be ready, and he is very confident that we will be able to fight back successfully against anything from a legal point of view. During the call, somebody asked him, what can we do as voters, as volunteers? Is there anything that we can do to help? And he was very adamant that there are basically three things that we can do as everyday citizens that will make a difference. And that is to be talking to voters, to be on the phones, at the door, on social media, through postcards, letting people know that everybody needs a vote plan, everybody needs an alternative vote plan, and everybody needs to early vote. Whether you vote in person or by mail, that ballot should come in at the earliest opportunity, because if there is a problem, that will give you a chance to correct it. And also moving people off the voter rolls and having them as a vote rather than a potential voter allows us to have a much better ratio of volunteers to voters at the end so that we can help them and make sure that more people get in. We need big margins this year. It's not going to be enough to just win by 187 votes like Adam Gray did a few years ago. We need him to win by 18,000 votes. We need to make sure that we have large margins that cannot be challenged. And then lastly, educate the voters about the threats, about how important it is to create these large margins. All of us need to be doing that work wherever we can. And also to prepare for mass protests. And what he means by that is if something happens in your area, if there's law enforcement showing up at your polling place, if your sheriff is stealing ballots, which actually happened here in California last year, you are ready to protest and to create public awareness of that. And the No Kings movement has handed us the ability to do this. There's pretty much every area of the country can put together a protest fairly quickly now. Here in Marin County, I am convinced we could do this in 24 hours if we had to do it. Bringing people together, getting into the news, bringing the media in, making it obvious of what's happening. And those are the things that we can do. However, there are some groups that are also, I'm seeing this everywhere. I'm seeing this at state parties. I'm seeing this in grassroots groups. I'm seeing this from the DNC. Everybody has a plan for election security. You can't do this. There's no way to overstate how important this is. Here in California, went to our California Democratic Party election protection group, and they have increased their training programs. They have increased partnerships with local parties with clear chains of communication now, where if you're in a county and something happens, you can contact your state party, who has a direct line to Rob Bonta in the Attorney General's office. They are expanding their hotline, both ours and volunteers. They've now 10 times their observers and their lawyers. We used to have about 100 trained people scattered across the state at a time. Now there's 1,000. 1,000 volunteers are going to be spread out across the state at every high-risk voting place. Attorneys, not only in the general office taking questions, but they want an attorney in every single county that will be following up on things there. We'll be focused mostly here on counties that have a majority of voters, people of color. So if you don't live in California, check it out with your own party to see what they plan and how you can help. Here in California, if you're interested in being trained as a poll observer, especially if you are an attorney or you are an attorney, there are forms to sign up for this and training still to be available. It's on their website. As far as groups go, Indivisible National has also got a plan for us. It's called Hands Off Our Vote in blue states, and Susan here and our leadership team will be working with this. They'll have helpful guidelines for how to message out to our members what the options are here. They're going to put in place infrastructure for a call to action should we need to be anywhere protesting or working with the media to get out what's happening, and then to make this huge early vote push this year. So I hope you feel a little bit better. I felt better once I did that. It's going to be hard. It's going to be stressful. We should expect Republicans to make a lot of problems and try to stop this. But So far, they are being turned back wherever they are, and we will be that last line of defense as volunteers. You can do that through talking to voters and being there. We can only turn out as many voters as we have volunteers. So we've designed a new program this year. It's called Turn Out to Win. You can find out more on our website. I'm not going to go into huge detail today, but that is our team. This is where we'll be directing you to postcarding, phone banking, canvassing, and eventually some texting at the end of the year. We can help you with donations if that's something that you want to do to support financially the candidates. But you can find that all out on our website. We have tools there to track your hours. We have a weekly meeting every Tuesday at 4 o'clock where we'll be talking about nothing voter outreach and all the races. We also offer one-to-one training for phone banking if that's something that you're interested in doing. It's all on our website. So upcoming events are, we're busy. We have our Turnout Tuesdays. We have guest speakers coming every week to talk about voter outreach. We have Activate America for postcarding coming on Tuesday. A week from Tuesday, we'll be talking about increasing your own circle through relational organizing, giving your own parties around organizing. In August, we'll be meeting the candidates. We'll be doing a canvassing tour. So everything that you need to know about becoming a volunteer is available right now through our Turnout to Win. Good, sorry. And I'm betting a big fundraiser on, you don't have to donate, but if you want to come hear him speak, he's a tremendous candidate that we have running here in the Central Valley for Congress. And then additional trainings. This week, we have a canvassing training for people that are interested in doing that. And you can actually, anywhere you want to canvass in the country, they'll be training you for that. And ongoing, again, like I said, that one-to-one phone banking training. So that's our, I'm going to stop my share. A lot of information, I know, but hopefully people feel better about election security, feel good about the House. Let's be measured about the Senate. We should have reasonable expectations, but certainly a lot of opportunity there to narrow their margin and maybe just pick it up completely. So any questions, Matt, specifically that I can answer?
Yes. Not a bunch, but there are a few here.
Okay.
The first one, I phone banked on Wednesday for Rebecca Bennett in New Jersey 7, and it was difficult to get people to listen so early. Is this theory to at least get the name in front of voters and not so much conversation?
Yeah, such a great question. I lead phone banks on Thursdays, and what I tell my phone bankers is you don't have to move them in one conversation. You just want to open the door. You just want to open the door. And so do what you can, but these people will be called multiple times. And in fact, research has shown that voters that are called multiple times are more likely to vote in November. So you certainly started the process. They're going to start hearing it everywhere they go. I don't ever push past the point of feeling like I'm being inappropriate or too pushy, but the first conversation is the first of many. So good work there in New Jersey.
Okay. The next one is related to the primaries. One of the questions was, are the primaries over? I know that they're not, but are there places within the primaries where we should be focusing our volunteer efforts?
That's a great question. We don't work, most groups do not work out of district to support one candidate over another in a primary. We let the local groups there do their own thing. Left to their own devices, most districts and states will pick the person that's most likely to win in a general. So once you start getting everybody involved from all across the country, it can get kind of messy. So no, we don't. But we do work to just get the vote out. So for instance, we did a lot of calling in California for months, not talking about the candidate, but just saying how important it was to vote, because a primary voter is much more likely to vote in a general election than someone that doesn't vote. So it is kind of a crazy time, these midterm elections, because some states have had their primaries 6 months ago and some won't have them until next month. So every state is different. But if you live in a state that is offering work in the primary, that's fine. And as a in-state person, if you have a preference for a candidate in your Democratic primary, feel free to go work for that candidate. That's fine. We just don't interfere from the outside, usually.
Okay. The next question, California 22 is lean Republican question mark. Dems won 60% of the primary vote. Can you comment?
Yeah, yes. California 22 is a toss-up now. It was a lean Republican, but it is now a toss-up. It is a very complex district. I could do an hour and a half talk just on California 22. It is an outlier. It doesn't follow any of the political rules, but basically it's a very low turnout district, the lowest in the country, often less than 30% turnout, especially among Democrats. We have a 15-point lead in voter registration there, but our voters don't vote. So it's very challenging. It's hard to get to. There's a lot of reasons why it doesn't look like it's not rated the way it looks. But we're very hopeful this year that we will be able to pull it out. We were over 60% of the primary turnout, Democrats were, but we had a competitive primary there and Republicans didn't. So they didn't feel the need really to vote like we did. So that explains some of that, but it is the lowest vote share that Valadeo has ever had in that district. And he does not have as much money as the Republicans do, which is really astounding. So we're very hopeful. But I think all of us that have worked in California 22 for the last 10 years know that we've been hopeful before. So we'll see. We'll see if a young, further left candidate can win in a purple district. It's going to be a referendum on that. If you want to come and hear Randy, he's the candidate talk, come to our fundraiser on Wednesday night. You'll get to see what a 31-year-old first-time congressional candidate that's taking far left positions in a basically red district has to say. It's remarkable. He's a remarkable person. So sometimes a candidate like that just shakes things up and gets people to think about things in a different way. But it's going to be challenging there.
Okay.
I'm hopeful. I think he's going to win. That's my personal feeling. So
excellent. Okay, and then the last question on my list here is related to California 6. Is Richard Pan a strong or a weak candidate?
Great question. He's a strong candidate. It's not so much that he's strong or weak, it's that we have a strong opponent because Kevin Kiley, decided magically to become an independent because he thought it would make him look better. So he did. And so we're not running against a registered Republican. For people that are highly informed, that won't matter. But on a ballot, when you haven't seen it before, it can be a problem. So right now, as this was just what I heard a couple of weeks ago from the party, they are still confident based on internal polling that he has this race in hand. He is an experienced Democratic state legislative person, so it's not that he's a new politician, and he's not new to the district, but the dynamics are a little bit odd. They're watching it because we have relatively fewer races in California to worry about because of Proposition 50. It's possible that will get added onto our list and we will be phone banking and canvassing for him. Right now, no, but he is considered as a strong candidate. It's more that he has a stronger opponent than we were hoping for. We were hoping for just some generic Republican but we didn't get that. So.
Awesome. Those are all the questions.
Okay. Anything new? Okay, well, that's great. What I can do is encourage everybody to go to our website. Maybe Matt or Joy or Andy can drop that into the chat. Go to the Turnout to Win page. That's got all of our election information on it, how to win the House, how to work in the Senate, how to donate, all of the tools that you'll get by joining the team. We are asking people to be committed to working an hour a week at least between now and November. We've just got to get to work. If we wait until October to do the work, it's way too late. People are deciding right now who they're going to vote for, if they're going to vote at all. And we need to be there. We need to be in their social media. We need to be on their email. We need to be on their phone. We need to see everything in their community. We need to be everywhere. And to do that, we need a lot of volunteers. We have about 250 people signed up so far on the team. We're really excited about it. And people that are taking on new things. They've never done anything before. And now they're writing a postcard, and they've never made a phone call. And now we're training people every week to make phone calls, and they're loving it. We're going to be hopefully holding our own canvas later in the year, just the people that are on this team going down to 13 or 22 or maybe 6 if they need us there. If there is texting available, we don't really know how that's going to look, what that's going to look like yet, but we will let you know as soon as we know that there's something out there to do. We can get you started right now. And you can always reach out to me through the IndiMarin website. I'm happy to answer your questions. It usually takes me about 24 hours to get to people's questions, but happy to. And if you are from out of state, and I know this is a little bit of a California centric call because out of responsibility, we have to be California centric focused for our House races. But if you're somewhere else and you want to know how to get hooked up to congressional races in your state, please reach out to me. I can help you get hooked up very quickly. The Senate links are on our website for those Senate races. All of the links for how to get hooked up to their campaigns and how to do phone banking for them is on our website. Not every candidate yet has phone banks available, like Chris Pappas doesn't have them yet because he hasn't been elected, but most of the candidates have. So you should be able to maneuver through the website and get most of the information that you need. And if not, we're here to answer your questions. So thank you for coming. It was great. I see so many familiar faces there. It's so good to see you all. I see some people that I haven't seen in a couple years, and that's really exciting too, to have you back. I know we're tired and it's discouraging, but I'm just feeling so much energy and so much hope out there by these volunteers that are coming in and the people that are leading these phone banks, these candidates that are so brave and standing up and having the hard conversations. We've got people that are risking their careers really by switching to a Senate race and giving up their seats because they feel so strongly that this is the time. This is the time, that the only time that we're going to have to take our country back. So great to see everyone. Have a great weekend. Have a great evening. And I hope to see all of you at the next call. You will get an email within a week with a recording of this. Please feel free to share it with your friends and family. And there'll be a sign up for the next one in August. And unless something really strange happens, we'll go more into detail on the House then and kind of summarize these Senate races that are happening in the next couple of days. And if you live in Maine, good luck. It's going to be quite a wild week for you. Bye, everybody.